At the start of this year, I didn't think I'd be racing. But instead, I've been able to do this. This was the big one. It had been an amazing 10 months of traveling around the country chasing my passion, but all good things come to an end. This week, I'd be racing at the SKUSA SuperNationals, one of the biggest races in the world, and the end of the 2021 season. It would be my first time racing in this event, and as if it wouldn't already be intense enough, I had decided to do it in two classes, KA 100 Senior and X30 Senior. I had defied the odds by being able to race at all this year, and now I'd be going out with a bang.
Hello.
Thank you. Good morning. Have a great day.
Thank you. Once I'd landed, gotten my bags, and picked up my rental car, it was straight to the track to get both my karts, as well as everything else, ready for the weekend. Arriving at the track, I had a number of things to do, and it would be a busy day.
Registered for two classes.
Yeah.
I have a note here that you...
What's up? Dude, I have to build two go-karts. I mean, my KA is pretty much ready to go.
Oh, you are running both?
I am running both.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
No, you're running with Dodie.
I am.
Oh, what's up, buddy?
How much are you?
There you go.
I'm assuming this is me. Oh, it has a mic on?
Is it you, Adam?
I'm assuming this is mine.
Is it you?
This is me, yes.
Is it you?
It's almost ready. Just need to swap the engine.
You're feeling brave.
I am. This could be my last one for a long time. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go out there and send it.
Go for it.
Yeah. So I've been wanting to race X30 all year. I'm just gonna go out there and enjoy it, have fun.
Yeah, might as well.
If I make the final, then I'll be thrilled.
Once I'd settled in, I got straight to work on prepping my karts. Running two classes is something I'd never done before, so I had no idea what to expect. I'd been racing KA all year, but in X30, I'd be throwing myself into the deep end. I was jumping into this race with no testing, having not driven an X30 for 2 years or even anything other than a KA for over a year. This was a class with multiple national and world champions, with drivers from IndyCar and other forms of racing also competing. With about 90 drivers in both classes and only 40 making the final, even just making it through would be an accomplishment, especially in X30. Even still, I was ready to take the challenge head on. At the end of the day, they opened up the track for the one and only track walk of the weekend. SKUSA had previously said that the track would be the same as the previous year, but it quickly became clear that this was not the case. Some parts of the track were rather eye-opening.
Who on earth designed this?
I don't know.
I'm not sure you. Probably.
Yeah! We're having to go all the way right, looking like it's our first race. Come over here.
Whoever made the track wants to sell the parts, apparently.
The track looked narrow and precarious, which had many people on edge about how much carnage we'd be seeing in the days ahead. I just knew that it would be essential to keep my kart out of the barriers. With everything ready to go for the start of practice on Wednesday, it was time to pack up and head to the hotel for the night. I was excited to be racing here in Las Vegas, and doing double duty at one of the biggest races in the world was a thrilling prospect. But if I'm being completely honest here, I was feeling far from comfortable as I headed back to the hotel that night. I had stretched myself as thin as I could go and pushed myself to the ragged edge to make it possible to get to this race. The past few weeks leading up to this had been a whirlwind, and the stress of it all was catching up to me. I knew how diabolical this could be towards my driving performance, so that night I tried my best to put my mind at ease and get focused for 5 straight days of driving at the SuperNationals. It was an early rise to get to the track for the first day of practice. My mechanic, Eric Gunderson, had arrived overnight.
First thing I'm going to do is make sure the thing fucking starts. And then
There's the turn where everyone's going to die today.
Alright, man.
I'd be starting the day in KA as part of the morning groups, and then moving on to X30 in the afternoon. Once the kart had been warmed up, it was time to head to the grid for the first on-track action of the weekend. First session was slick and slippery, with dust and dirt covering the parking lot surface. A slow puncture in my front right tire impacted my session, but I still managed to get a feel for the track, and most importantly, not crash. Immediately after the session, it was straight to work on finding ways to shave off those extra tenths of a second. After making a couple of adjustments, it was time to head back out for session number 2. The kart ran better this time, and my pace was looking good enough to fight towards the front of the field. There was still a long way to go, however, and it was important to keep pushing if I were to be anywhere close to the fight for the win.
Front's not turning, don't give it more wheel. Just give it, instead of like this pressure, just a little bit more pressure, and it brings the front in. So that way you don't have to get more wheel. So use the brake pressure.
Okay.
In the last KA session of the day, it was difficult to say where we really stood, as I was one of only a few drivers opting not to go on new tires. The pace seemed like it should have been better, but it was still hard to say where we stood. And then it was time to dive into X30. I knew there would be more power and more grip, but it had been a long time since I'd driven anything like this. Even still, I was excited to challenge myself and see what I could do. As I completed the first laps of the weekend, I just remember thinking to myself, whoa, this is not a KA. This is different. I don't know if this was a good idea. There was no turning back now, though. As the day went on, adjustments with my driving and the kart helped us find some speed. By the last session, things were looking better, and for my first day in an X30 in 2 years, I was relatively happy with where I stood. There was, however, a long way to go if I were to stand a chance of being in the top 40 drivers to get through to Sunday's final.
So just get as tight as the barrier as possible. Okay. Gunner.
After some final video review to get ready for Thursday, the day came to an end, and it was time to head back to the hotel and get some rest.
I believe in the spirit world, so when I lose something, somehow something appears back in my trailer that's not mine.
It's bullshit. We don't have that stuff here.
I know.
Yeah.
Heading back to the hotel that night, it was important to stay positive for the days ahead. But truthfully, where we stood against the competition was pretty unclear. In KA,
Yeah, it's
we'd
the way
been
they
looking
do it,
good
yeah.
until the last session when everyone else seemed to take a step forward, while we took a step backwards. In X30, we'd made progress through the day, but my inexperience in that class meant it was anyone's guess
Yeah, no, they
for where
sent
I'd
in
end up.
Alright, see it.
No matter what though, it was important to stay resilient and keep pushing for the days ahead.
Yeah. I like it. It's a good engine. I've run it before.
It was day 3 at the SuperNationals and day 2 of on-track action. Today would see practice followed by qualifying, which would set the grid for the heat races on Friday and Saturday.
I mean, he seems excited about it.
Absolutely. And I'm glad he is.
Something happen on track, it comes to our attention, we review video. We have a discussion, and we...
After our rocky end to KA on Wednesday, we made a couple of changes which we hoped would help propel us back towards the front of the field.
Yeah.
So they haven't even gone out. So.
In practice, our setup changes meant the kart was in a better place than it had been at the end of Wednesday. The pace wasn't terrible, but we still needed to find something more if we were to make an impact.
Just A/B test it? Yeah. Go back to half a box, you mean? Yeah. First session was okay. We went too high on the pressures.
Now it was time for KA qualifying. This would be a crucial session for the rest of the weekend, as it would determine where in the field I'd be starting in all 3 of the heat races. A good qualifying would mean I'd be starting up front in every heat, while a bad qualifying would relegate me to the inevitable carnage, chaos, and bumper penalties that would happen in the midfield. In my mind, I'd put myself in a pretty good position to draft off some pretty quick drivers, but after a couple of laps, it quickly became apparent I'd made a critical mistake. Endless passing, mistakes, and other traffic meant I didn't get a single fast lap in. It was infuriating. My only clean lap had been lap 2, and on that lap, I'd gone fastest. But of course, as the tires got up to temperature, the lap times plummeted. I'd ended up 58th overall out of 93.
Goes in there. Hit the curb there. It's not good. Through here, I thought was pretty good. Was good on the brakes. And right here, the levy messes up. And now the lap's ruined.
The kart had felt good, and the potential was there for so much more. As livid as I was, I still had another class to go, so I had to relax, refocus, and get into X30 mode.
The part where I was like, it's not a race weekend if Alex Sancho isn't yelling about something after the race.
After the lunch break, it was time to get on track for practice in X30. We had an issue in the first session, but in session 2, we'd managed to get it sorted. The pace wasn't looking too bad, but we still pushed to find more before qualifying.
That's something that's, again, as you get your driving more advanced, you're able to control your mind and break those habits.
Next up was qualifying number 2 of the day, and after the travesty that was KA qualifying, I was determined to not let the same happen again. As the sun went down, the pressure rose, and it was time to see where I really stood in this stacked X30 senior field.
I can do that stuff.
Yeah.
I hit a bit of traffic early on, as the tires were still getting up to temperature, but once I got some clear air, I was able to lay down some solid laps. I held my breath as I waited to see where I'd ended up, and then found out I'd qualified 39th out of 88. Honestly, I was pretty happy with this, taking into consideration the depth of the talent I was racing against. Having just jumped into an X30 yesterday, I was well and truly in the mix among countless front-running drivers, many of which I'd managed to out-qualify.
Was it good?
Well, we put a bit of positive camber in, and we tilted the front bar to 45 degrees, and that helped. It helped with turn-in. It was better. But what I felt was I would turn in would be good, and then mid-corner, the inside rear would pick up, and then like slam down, and then it struggles to get out of the corner.
Yeah.
It had been a much better end of the day in X30 than it had been in KA, and I'd put myself in a decent position to fight from in the heat races. With the craziness of the heat races still ahead, the prospect of making the final still seemed far-fetched, but if I could stay clean and consistent, it wasn't out of the question.
Track should go through here, honestly. Christmas-themed SuperNats.
It was nice to leave the track that night on a positive note, and after a roller coaster day, it was time to get some rest.
Now it works. Cool. So I can't use the elevator, but I can get in my room. So I don't know how that helps me.
But now, the intensity would only ramp up as we made our way into the heat races on Friday. The first of the weekend's race days was upon us. Today we'd be going through a quick warm-up followed by 2 heat races, both of which would count towards a points total that determines whether we get straight through to the final or go through the last chance qualifier. With the point system we'd be using, a good or bad result in even just one heat race could potentially make or break the entire weekend.
But I think what's happening is the cart is bound, and then it releases partially bound.
Before long, it was time to head out for KA warm-up.
Did you set pressures yet or no?
It was not the start of the day we were looking for, as a carburetor issue meant my engine would constantly sputter and shut off. Thankfully, it was only warm-up, but it meant momentum was not on our side heading into the first heat race. We got the issue sorted out, and then it was time to go racing.
We had a little pop-off game, so we kind of went through the carburetor and checked it.
With 93 karts in the class, they of course split us in half for the heats, so I'd be going in the second. I watched on as the first group took the green flag. I'd be starting this first heat in 29th position. Full inside road checked up, which straight away gave me a half bumper penalty. I got through turn 1 well and made up a few positions, but then at turn 2, a crash to my inside forced me wide, costing me some ground. Now clear of the first few corners, I went straight to work on charging forward. However, my progress was cut short just past the halfway point when another driver flipped, bringing out the red flag and causing the end of the race. Thankfully, nobody was injured. In just 6 laps, I'd gone from 29th to 18th, although my half bumper 3-second time penalty had put me back to 22nd. It was frustrating to have had my progress cut short, but it was encouraging that my pace had been just as strong as the leaders.
Yeah, I got a half bumper because the inside road checked up at the start and there was nothing I could do about it.
There wasn't much time to rest though, as pretty soon it was time to head back out for heat race 2. This time I'd be starting from 30th, but the goal remained the same, to make up as much ground as possible. I once again avoided the turn 1 chaos and made up a few spots, until I got absolutely pile-driven into the person ahead at turn 2, pushing in both sides of my bumper and negatively affecting the handling of my kart. Even still, I fought my way forward. Poorly handling kart, I'd made up 14 positions to finish in 16th. The race had been ruined by my pushed-in bumper though, as it had given me a 5-second time penalty and put me back to 24th.
There's a race right
now, it was time to take a breather and get ready for X30. Warm-up was looking pretty solid, until I had a mechanical failure which caused another driver to hit me and drive right over the top of me. We headed straight to the frame table after the session. Surprisingly though, nothing on the kart was bent, so after thoroughly inspecting everything, it was time to head to the grid for Heat Race 1.
What's up? I haven't seen you at all this weekend.
Yeah, I know. This is a different session every time.
Yeah. What's up?
Using the vlog.
Pretty good, honestly.
I was about to start talking shit to you back.
You can say whatever you want.
Where did you qualify?
39th.
What's the name? Where do you start?
20th.
Starting from 20th, I found myself in a much different scenario in X30 compared to KA, and in this class, I knew it would be a challenge to stay afloat among the immense level of talent I was surrounded by. Regardless, I was ready to get my elbows out and stand my ground. I made it through turn 1, but at turn 2 a pileup formed to the inside and I got squeezed to the outside. There was a bit of contact which sent me airborne, and now the kart just didn't feel right. I'd have to put up with it the best I could.
Bringing the kart straight to the frame table because nothing looks bad, it just doesn't drive right.
I'd held on to finish 19th, but now it was a race to be ready for the second heat race.
Switched it in the middle. We'll see.
We got everything sorted out in time, and it was time for heat race 2 under the floodlights. Once again starting 20th, I knew it would be crucial to stay smart but aggressive, keeping my kart in one piece but still fighting as fiercely as anyone else out there. I navigated the first few corners well to stay out of trouble and make up a couple of positions. Pace wasn't quite as strong as I'd hoped for, but when things got crazy, I made sure I was there to pounce on the opportunity. In a frantic race, I came home in 17th. It had been a pretty solid and consistent pair of heat races in X30 today. If I could have another good result in Heat 3 on Saturday, it was possible that maybe, just maybe, I could make it through to the final without having to go through the OCQ.
Some things are good to be repeated, others maybe not.
You heard it.
After cleaning things up and going through some final review, it was time to wrap things up for the day.
They went up to him, the team manager went up to him and said, "Don't post that anymore."
I will say he had a few more fancy.
It's a very close relationship from how it normally goes.
Rather than just heading straight to the hotel, we decided to do a little bit of exploring. We were joined by my friend Nolan Tidwell, who had come to watch for the weekend.
Like Andrew punting someone?
Yeah. Nolan, you want to take one of those?
One of those?
No, you shouldn't take one of those.
Take one and give it
Thank my lucky stars to be living
You said pasta. I thought you were.
That's how you say it.
No, it's pasta.
Nah.
Yeah. When I first walked in, I thought that was a push, and I ran straight into it.
Nice.
Damn, son.
Now it was time to get some rest and get ready for another intense day on Saturday.
Oh my god.
Saturday was upon us, and today would decide whether or not I'd make it through to the finals on
It
Sunday.
doesn't need, it doesn't need to be a karting in POV.
Yes.
This is my friend Brooke. We needed a ride to the track.
It's hilarious because it's always the same. You can have a good race and you'll still find
Yeah, so every, like, I don't even know how many barriers are staked down. So you can, like, hit one part and it'll have...
It's definitely never going to be at the Rio again. But
With one heat race and potentially a last chance qualifier yet to come, today could make or break my entire event. KA had 93 drivers and X30 had 88, but only 34 would get straight through to Sunday from the heat races, with the next 6 coming from the LCQ. For everyone else, their SuperNationals would come to an early end. KA warm-up wasn't ideal, and I seemed to be lacking the strong pace I'd shown the day before.
pretty good.
How was that practice?
Slow.
Why?
Last corner. So I'm losing all my time. Yesterday was quick, but right there, no.
We made some changes to try and regain our pace, and then it was time for the third and last heat race. This time, I'd be starting from 29th. Avoiding a crash on my right side cost me some momentum and a few positions, but once I got into a rhythm, I managed to find the pace I'd shown on Friday. Coming onto the last lap, I was more determined than ever to gain every position I could in order to stay out of the LCQ. I charged from 29th to 14th, but in typical fashion, a bumper penalty struck again and put me all the way back to 21st. It was frustrating because I don't even know how it happened because I never hit anyone, and it meant I'd have to race in the LCQ, starting from 4th. I just had to finish in the top 6 to make it to Sunday, but the stress level was at a high as I made my way to the grid. I tried my best to keep a level head and stay focused. Kept 4th on lap 1, and then heading into lap 2, I made a pass for 3rd. The top 3 of us broke away from the rest of the field, and I finally began to relax. Although another driver caught and passed me towards the end, I was safely through to Sunday, having finished in 4th.
You separated yourself like nearly immediately. Like you did the perfect thing.
Thank you. I'm just glad I actually have a race to do tomorrow.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Thank you. I'm just glad that I have a race to do tomorrow.
I know, but like...
Well, time to get in X30 mode.
Yeah.
Time to focus on that.
I at least had the comfort of knowing I'd be racing in one class on Sunday, But now it was time to face an even bigger challenge in attempting to make the final in X30.
Can't even see what's ahead of me.
I don't know what he does now. I think he's.
X30 warm-up wasn't too bad, but if we were going off pace, I'd need to find something more in order to make the final.
You were a lot better in that corner compared to before.
Yeah. And the tires don't look bad.
I looked over every bit of video and every bit of data I could to try and find that extra edge that could make all the difference. And then it was time to head to the grid for one last attempt at making Sunday's main show. And unfortunately, this is as much as my GoPro recorded before it froze for the rest of the heat. With everyone around me desperate to stay out of the LCQ, it was a hectic race, and contact sent me airborne twice and bent my rear bumper against my left rear tire, basically acting as a brake. The racing had gotten even more aggressive, but through the madness, I managed to bring it home in 22nd place.
They haven't posted the LCQ results and they won't for a little bit because they have to calculate them. 22nd. So it was 17th, 19th, and 22nd. So I might be...
The intensity was through the roof as we waited to see if we'd made the final. We still had to be prepared to race the LCQ and get everything fixed and ready in the short break we had, so it was a frantic race against time.
Yeah. So I was 20th in that heat. There are 2 bumper penalties ahead of me. So I still don't know if we're in, but it helps. Hans, what do you think? 20th, 19th, and 17th. Did I make the final?
Now, where do you need to be to make the final?
It's top 34. So like theoretically 17th out, like 17th average, but
So you need to make up 17 spots?
no.
No, so okay. So he needs to be.
You're not, I'm not getting
I said I finished 20th,
Yes.
17th, and 19th in the heat races.
Okay.
Did I?
alright,
Do you think I made the final?
average of all those things. I thought you said you finished 17th, 19th, and whatever in the last heat. I'm like, how the fuck do you finish 19th?
Really?
That's good content.
That's what you said. You okay?
We'll find out in a few minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I made the final. I was 17th, 19th, and 20th. I made the final in this one.
Oh, okay.
This one, I don't know yet. We have to wait and see. I might be in the LCQ, I might not. Doesn't look like there's anything yet for LCQ.
And then finally, the verdict came through.
Oh, here we go. I think I'm in.
Nice. Congrats, buddy.
I think we're in. Yes! I got the last spot. I made it to the final in X30. My first weekend in an X30 in 2 years. In a stacked field.
How about that?
In a stacked field. That absolutely is a win for me. Good.
It felt so nice to be able to watch the LCQ instead of racing. After the typical cleaning routine and final review for Sunday, it was time to finally relax and take a deep breath. After all the stress and all the mayhem, I'd be racing in 2 finals on Super Sunday.
It is very cool.
How many of them were really within driving distance of each other though?
You'd have to throw the name at me. I don't know.
Someone just came and started running.
Not that I didn't want to eat whale. I take that back because it came out
From what I can tell, you've been doing a good job, Doctor.
I went to bed that night slightly more relaxed than the past few nights, but I also knew that I still had a massive task ahead in bringing home the results I wanted and deserved in the part of the weekend that really mattered.
Have it for lunch. If I put it in the cooler, it might be okay.
It should be okay.
We'd spent the past 5 days building up to it, and now it was finally here. Super Sunday was upon us, and it was time to make all of our hard work count.
Yeah.
And I counted the laps, and it was like 300 laps. And you're like,
Yeah. If I were you and I had the chance to run 2 classes next year, I think I would do it. Just personally.
I don't know.
I'd surprise myself.
Yeah.
Like.
Good luck today, Adam.
Thanks.
The past 5 days had seen some of the most intense, thrilling, and at times stressful moments of my life, and now it all came down to this. The elation of making both finals on Saturday had been replaced by a dead focus on ending the 2021 season, and as it stands, my time in national karting the way I wanted. First up was warm-up for KA. Warm-up started off good, but my pace mysteriously disappeared by the end of the session. This left us with some work to do before the final. Then, it was time for X30 warm-up. Most other drivers had gone on new tires while I had not, so on the timesheets the pace didn't look so good. My driving and the kart had been good though, so come the final, I'd put on new tires and the pace to stay in the fight would hopefully be there. And after that, it was time for the driver's parade and opening presentation.
Drivers only!
Starting?
14th. You?
34th in X30, and then...
you were the last driver to not do the LCQ?
I was
That's
so
a lucky
happy.
spot.
I know, yeah.
It was showtime and time for the final in KA. We'd struggled in warm-up, but had made some setup changes, and I knew that when the kart was feeling good, I'd be just as fast as anyone out there. The goal was the same as it had been all weekend, to charge forward as quickly as possible. Doing so starting from 38th would be a challenge though, and with the racing about to get more aggressive than ever, it would be a battle even just to survive all 24 laps. Now was not the time to give in though, and it was time to make the potential I'd been showing all weekend in this class count for something.
Give me time, give us a kiss. Tell me your politics.
Crash brought out the red flag, but the race would be restarted. Another driver's attempt to put me in the barrier had ripped out part of my front bumper and bent my steering shaft, severely affecting the performance of my kart. From there, I'd been hanging on for dear life, but with 8 laps remaining, I was not ready to give up yet.
Tell me your politics. Open up your eyes.
had been the most cutthroat, aggressive, ruthless race I'd ever been a part of, and through the insanity with my damaged kart, I'd finished in 24th. With my kart being bent for most of the race, I had not achieved the result I was looking for.
Really experienced driver. He said that was the most insane race he's ever been a part of. The most aggressive races he's ever been a part of. That was just crazy.
Have fun, my friend.
I'm nervous for you.
I just gotta go out there and survive and enjoy it, that's all.
There was not that much time to reflect though, as it was soon time for the final in X30. KA had been mayhem, but now I'd still have one last chance to make something happen in a fiercely competitive field. I'd be starting from 34th and had nothing to lose, and with this likely to be my last big race for a long time, I was ready to give it everything. Once again with a damaged kart, I brought it home in 30th place. And just like that, it was all over. Before contact ruined my race, I'd been fighting solidly in the midfield with some great drivers, something I'd never expected to do heading into this event.
It was going good until I got launched to the last corner.
Thanks. Not easy.
They just tweaked the steering shaft a little bit, tires burned out, it's just nowhere at the end.
It's good. Learned a lot though. So you gotta take a positive.
No, I learned a lot this weekend, for sure.
As rough of an ending as it was, I'd achieved a lot and shown great potential. I just wish I could have done something more to fulfill that potential. KA ultimately could and should have been a very different weekend had I gotten a clean lap in qualifying, and in X30 I should have stuck in the midfield fight if I hadn't been launched into another driver only 5 laps into the final. But in racing, sometimes things just don't go your way and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, it was time to head to the airport for my flight back home that night.
Turning to something beautiful, and you know, for you I'd bleed myself dry. For you I'd bleed myself dry. I'd bleed myself dry. For you I'd bleed myself dry. And it's true. Look how they shine for you. Oh, look how they shine for you. how they shine and fall out. Look how they shine and fall. Look how they shine for you. Look how they shine. Look at the stars. Look how they shine for you. And all the things that you do.
It had been a weekend I'd never forget, and it had left me with a lot to think about. More than anything, though, it made me hungrier than ever to get back out there and prove my worth. But unfortunately, there are things in life that take priority over racing that must be taken care of. I'll be back at some point. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I'll be back, one way or another.